So maybe it's a good recording. Let's see if we use it or not. Hey, Doug. Not sure if you can hear us.
Hello there.
Hey, how are you doing?
Yes, I am well.
Good, good, cool. I ordered your book actually.
Very good.
I haven't received it yet, so I'm waiting for it. So I ordered like a week ago. Maybe I need to double check where it is actually. So cool.
So a book, this thing with papers and
Yeah, with
pages?
actual papers.
Oh.
Actual paper, yeah.
Jurassic
There's even
reading.
pictures and stuff in there.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So
Yeah.
all my books are here.
So, yeah, I just said to Volker that on LinkedIn, at least it's our experience from a Flow BI perspective, that the meetings are relatively small. So we have one or two attendees, sometimes zero, and then we run the session essentially. And I said for this time because we have the recording already, and we do run these sessions, but mostly for the recording, and then we put them online on Vimeo and yeah, collect
Yep.
leads with it. So, but I had the recording already, so I said, don't want to do it. So let's have a Q&A session. Maybe it's more value for a potential audience in combination with the slides. I can go through the slides if you want, at least briefly, or maybe go to the.
If I'm the only one here, if you'll
Yeah,
run through it, because I haven't watched the recording as I was intended to do this.
yeah,
But
that's fine.
if you want to just do that real quick, and
Yep.
then we can end
Yeah.
because I'll watch the recording. Because
Yeah.
I'm always interested in what you're doing, Michael. You're a great guy, and
Cool,
we've
thanks.
been friends for a while. So
Yeah.
you're always doing something interesting. So I want
Yeah.
to learn as much as I can. So.
And it's a cool senior meeting here, so it's a cool meeting. So
Very nice.
the two guys showed up. This is really nice.
And what is new is that it's not only doing interesting things by content, also by headlines, as you see here. So that's quite new.
Yeah,
Clickbait headlines.
right. So seriously, so we tried out the more reasonable stuff, and nobody cared. Seriously, we got no link sign-ups, nothing. Like hey, let's integrate your data using AI. Nobody cared. But then we said, okay, what about losing your job for a data modelers? And then everybody was like registering. So seriously, to have some good content out. Oh, there's more people coming actually. Let me just admit. So
Yeah, I invited yesterday more than 200 people on LinkedIn, so maybe
oh, nice. Yeah,
it
see,
will be recorded.
yeah. I can go to the slides. Hey, hi, Michael.
Hello.
So the yeah, let me go to the slides. So hey, Michael, we have a very simple setting here, like a meeting more style, not like a webinar, more like a meeting, and we have some. I think it could be an interesting discussion, essentially, different format. And I'm recording, guys. So if you don't like that, turn off your webcam, or because I would, if this becomes a good discussion here, I would like to publish this, if you mind. So yeah, that's the idea. Okay, so the let me just double check if there's more people coming. Actually, Richard is coming. It's cool. Yeah, I'm working with Richard on some stuff at the moment, so it's also good. Hey, Richard, there's more people coming. Cool. Yeah, yeah, let's talk about Flow BI. Again, a bit of a catchy headline, but it's actually true. So what we're doing is essentially we are building a data platform, essentially based on your data, and the modeling is the idea of Flow BI is really to build this overnight, and I come back to that. So what's Flow BI? And just have to double check a bit if some people join. So safe harbor statement, all the features I'm showing here, well, they are in the tool, they are already there. But if I talk about some upcoming features, they might or might not come into the tool essentially. So what's Flow BI? It's essentially is a Gen AI that defines the raw data vault. So it doesn't generate the raw data vault. It just tells us, based on the data you attach, the data source you attach, which hubs, links, satellites do you need to capture all your data in a consistent fashion, including the business key selection for the hubs, including satellite splits for a security privacy rate of change, for example, and also including special entity types like FAQ satellites, non-historized links, reference data, and so on. It's fully data-driven, which means that if you have let's say, a empty source table, we would ignore because we need data to come up with the raw data model. If you have metadata, perfect. The bare minimum we need is the metadata about the entities and the columns. Everything else is optional and would be nice. So the more you have, the better. We're going to consume that, and the model becomes better if you provide metadata, essentially. But it's not required, it's optional. The goal is, if you attach data, that you get at least a valid data vault model for your attached data sets, but if you have more metadata, essentially, the model becomes better than just valid, essentially. And I said we define the raw data vault up here because we don't generate the create table statements or the insert statements for your raw data vault. What we do is we provide the metadata to an existing tool, like database automation tools. And at the moment, the official partner list, we have a strategic partner with Data Vault Builder. And then we have the Data Vault for DBT packages that we integrate with. So we essentially hand over the metadata for your raw data vault over to these players, and they will then generate the physical model, the create table statements, the insert statements. And we provide them the metadata for both the structure, which hub-sync satellites do you need, and for the loading patterns. From where do you load the business key, or from where is a attribute loaded, and so on. So we have both, essentially. But we integrate with the tool stack. We don't compete with these tools, essentially. So how do we, the question now becomes, let's say you don't have a engine like Flow BI, how do you do this? Typically, when you look at a typical data warehouse team, you have essentially, you organize by sprints typically, and you have essentially, you shoot certain data sets through the layers of the data platform following a trace and bullet approach. That's what we typically do. We avoid big bangs, essentially. Now, when we look at these projects where we use Data Vault has been designed for those agile projects, and there's different aspects inside Data Vault. We have the agile Data Vault methodology, we have the reference architecture inside the training, for example. We have the implementation patterns, we have an extensible Data Vault model. It can expand over time, essentially. And Data Vault is really mostly, it's based on patterns. Everything in Data Vault is based on patterns, not just mostly, but it's really based on patterns. And we can use automation tools for generated code. And these tools are typically based on templates that they apply to metadata that you have to set up. So you analyze the source systems, you come up with a raw data vault, you set up the metadata for your raw data vault inside your tool of choice, let's say Data Vault Builder, and then the tool will then apply templates to your metadata to generate the code for your platform. And there's aspects in the methodology, for example, where it's all about patterns in the approach, where different aspects are essentially used inside the methodology, and it's all about improving the process over time. I'm just skipping through these slides because we have those in another recording as well. I want to come to the Q&A session, essentially. And the focus really on business value. That's what we do. So we focus on business value and identify the source sales we need for the business value, load it into raw data vault, model it in raw data terms, attach the business logic, derive the information model, build the dashboard, for example. So typically we have a team, we have different team roles on board, like a source system specialist, a data modeler, business users, data engineers, and so on. And to scale this up, you typically have multiple teams that work in parallel on the effort. So how long does it take? So typically these data platform projects are multi-year endeavors. So even for small firms, they have to integrate these data sets over time. They have limited people on board. They have limited budget over time. So that essentially drives it over years. And these data sets in the source, they change over time. Their requirements change, so they want to adjust that, essentially. What are project risks? That clients, they use the wrong tool stack. They use complex architecture, essentially, for the system. There might be dependencies that result in high testing effort. They might use the wrong approach to modeling. The question is if they want to use Data Vault or not, essentially. But also other issues like lack of skills and knowledge. You might have the budget, but you can't find the resources. You can't hire them from the market because they're not available. Or the resources, they think they know Data Vault, but then they do hub-sync satellites, but not really Data Vault as we typically use it. Distribution of teams might also add to some risk. Multicultural issues, budgeting, political issues, and so more, and so many more, essentially. All right. When we look at scalability of the team, yes, Data Vault project can scale, but then again, you can have multiple delivery teams in parallel. And my personal biggest project was 12 teams, where 12 teams times, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 people were working all in parallel. That was the biggest project, but my smallest project scaled from 25 people in the overall team. I believe they had 3 teams. That's at least my opinion. The customer said 2, so 2.5 teams roughly. So 2.5 teams with 25 people scaled down to 2 people. Still a Data Vault project. These 2 people were only made to maintain the solution, essentially. But it really boils down, if you want to scale up, can you hire the right talent? Do you find the resources who know data vault, who can build, who can model essentially the raw data vault for your data sources and plug it into the tool? Knowledge-wise, they must know your source systems. They must know data vault methodology and how to model a raw data vault, and they must know the tool of your choice that you want to use for automating the raw data vault, DBT, data vault for DBT, for example, or data vault builder, and others maybe. And we have, I don't want to talk in this recording about, maybe off the recording, we can talk about that, but in the recording, we don't want to talk about the vendors who signed already up with FlowBI and who are currently integrating with us. We're looking at 3 major vendors where they're integrating as we speak, essentially. So there's more to come, essentially, more announcements to come. Now, the cool thing is, FlowBI is really an AI that knows data vault, right? So there's an expert system involved, a fact-based expert system, and I built the rules. I set up how to essentially set up the data vault, which you can adjust. So if you don't agree with me, we can talk about adjusting this expert system essentially. So it has all the patterns implemented, how we model data vault essentially. Yes, it needs to learn your data, and we do this on a daily basis. So FlowBI is based on a scheduler, looks at your data sources day by day, identifies changes inside your data sources, and then comes up overnight with a new model. So typically what we do is, in the end, FlowBI follows data vault approaches here. So we use a data warehouse in the backend. We have a repository, and this repository is really a data vault design. It's based on an operational database on Postgres. And what we have is staging areas. We have a raw data vault, we have a business vault, information marts. But we don't produce reports. What we do is we produce logical models, which hub-sync satellites you need for your sources. That's our delivery, essentially. So we have also 2 phases. We have the data warehousing phase. We call it just warehousing phase because we capture both metadata and data. And then we have the delivery phase. That's where we deliver or generate where we define the raw data vault for your design and then deliver that to you essentially. Now, the thing is this, in your data warehouse, you typically you have the snapshot date timestamp defined in the morning. So when all the source systems have delivered your data, then by, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 a.m. in the morning, you produce the snapshot, you load the pit tables and so on, and then deliver the reports to the end users. What we do is, we really start at 5 p.m. or which you can configure 5 p.m., 6 p.m. in the evening. That's when we start building the model for the next morning. And this model takes a couple of hours to produce, yes. And by the night, when we're done, we hand it over to the automation tools so they can generate you the next version of the raw data vault essentially and absorbing these changes essentially. How they do that depends a bit on the tool, on the data automation tool, but there's different options essentially. And so when you come back to the office in the morning, you have a new version of the raw data vault with all the changes absorbed ready, and you can start doing reporting again essentially. That's the basic idea. So actually we generate the raw data vault overnight. That's for sure. And the runtime, how many hours it requires, is currently defined by the largest table that you have. Because in the end, the largest table must fit on one node. FlowBI is in the backend is MPP based, so we have actually a setup of 18 MPP clusters running in parallel. I mean, 9 of them, half of them are standard MPP stuff like S3 clusters or Redis clusters, for example, and so on. But then the other half, the other 9, we built by ourselves actually, like with all the job scheduling and so on. And the biggest table must fit on one node, not in memory, just on disk. But that's the limitation at the moment. But this limitation is also will be gone essentially as well. We're working on that. It's not the highest priority at the moment because we can spin up disks essentially, and that works for us so far. So, but we can. That's a limitation at the moment essentially. So it takes a couple of hours depending on what the largest table is. You can talk about how to reduce the amount of data because if you have non-historized data, for example, I don't need to have the full data set. I don't need to have all your core records for all your history. I need a snapshot or a subset of these records essentially. For master data, I must see all the data, but that's it. And and what FlowBI defines essentially is the metadata for all the layers up until the raw data vault, including a landing zone or staging area on a data lake, including the raw data vault essentially. We don't produce the metadata or the logical model for the business vault or information marts, that's out of our scope. So we just in quotes produce the raw data vault model essentially. That's it. And then we hand over the metadata to the automation tools, and they will generate the physical code based on our metadata for the structure again, the structure saying which hub sync satellites do you need, and the loading procedures, from where to where do you load the data essentially. That's the idea. And if we get started, we typically start small, which means that yes, you can attach thousands of source tables, but what about, let's start with 5 tables, right? Let's see if that works out. You can review the model much easier. You can give feedback. We might adjust the model to your needs, and then we can scale up essentially, right? So that's the idea. So start with 5 tables or 15 tables. If you like the results, go to 50 tables. If you like the results, go to 500 tables. If you like that, go to 5,000 source tables. I don't care, right? Because in Flow BI, everything is MVP based. So if you attach 5,000 source tables, yeah, we spin up more nodes that all run in parallel essentially, right? And processing the data. Yeah, that's a quick run essentially about the webinar. We have this webinar in a more detailed discussion essentially online as well on our website, flowbi.media. That's where you find the recordings of all our webinars. And yeah, this is just the icebreaker. So yeah, I changed the format a bit with a bit short notice to a more Q&A session. So if you have any questions, now is your time essentially. Volker.
I think I'm more forced to give answers than questions.
Yeah, you went to
training. Yeah.
Yeah. There's 2 guys, Volker and Richard. You guys went to a training, so you to this full 4-day training program. Essentially, you made your hands dirty on Flow BI already. I'm working. And if you have any questions, just shoot your questions. Otherwise, I'm just keep going here. Michael, or how do you spell your name?
Michael, yeah.
Okay.
And so basically, the Flow BI runs on the cloud, on the AWS?
Yeah, so it runs in the cloud. It runs in AWS at the moment. We do have, I mean, we received a couple of pushback from the clients because initially, Flow BI would look at it has a JDBC connector, it connects to your data sets, but then it would load the data from your data sources into our own cloud, into our own storage, and then process it there. Well, I can understand that clients have a concern with that. So that's why we have 2 new features. One is local data storage, where you provide an S3 cluster or an Azure cluster, like a data storage, where we store your data. And then you can also have a Docker image from us that you spin up on your AWS or Azure environment. And this Docker image will then connect to your data sources, load the metadata and the data into your storage on your premises, and do the data profiling we need, and then only send metadata to us. So we know what tables you have, what columns you have, what data source you have, and we have the profiling results, and then can do the rest essentially on our premises. But in this case, we only see metadata, and that's it. And we currently have requests for Google Cloud. So this Docker image and the storage will also move into the Google Cloud at the moment. And for on-premise, we're not sure about on-premise yet. Most probably either Impala on Cloudera or maybe Apache Drill, something like that. And then, but you need some HDFS on-premise as well. So it wouldn't run against, well, we'll see. My guess is on a realistic data scenario, you have to have some distributed file system locally, or Min.io, for example, locally, and then some query engine.
Yeah.
So we don't see your data anymore, we just see your metadata.
In the scenario I mentioned, so this container is accessing the data, doing all the machine learning and profiling things, and the results of that are then going into the cloud to do the secret source with the Gen AI generation.
Yeah, so we don't do so all the AI is done on the Flow BI premises, but we just do we prepare those steps essentially. Now, here's the thing, in all honesty. So we had this pushback from clients, and then I looked at the process, how can we solve this problem? And then I realized, by pure luck, Flow BI, the name Flow BI comes from different aspects, to be honest. One aspect is that there's a flow how we process the data into the target model. And just like in a data warehouse, where you also have data flows coming in, and eventually they end up in a report, essentially the results, right? Here's the same game. We have data and metadata coming in, and eventually this will lead into a logical raw data vault, essentially, and then we hand it over to the data automation tools. And I realized then, while reviewing what's going on, I realized that the first couple of steps, they're dealing with data, with the data of the client. But then afterwards, we don't need data anymore. We just work with the results. And that was pure luck, to be honest. I mean, it was by design, yes, but only the design from Flowbear came out of necessity, how we set up everything. But just this, the first steps dealt with data, and after that, we don't need data anymore. We just need the results from the processing. And that's when we decided to move those first steps, those MEP classes essentially, into a Docker image. You will have to spin this up multiple times, so just spinning up one Docker image will not be sufficient. I would spin up, it's much more time essentially for processing the data. But then you could run this all on premise or on your environment, and then we hand over the metadata to the subsequent agents that will then do the rest essentially. That's the idea. But to be honest, it was pure luck to some extent. Yeah. But hey.
Okay. I will review the recording once again.
Yeah. There's quite a lot. So we do these reviews, these webinars, and we put all the recordings online. That's why I would love if I like your questions already. So if you don't mind, I would love to put this on our
Sure,
media.
sure.
Also,
No problem.
nice. Yep. Any other questions from your side? So we work on a couple of integrations. Again, we work with 3 major vendors at the moment. I mean, you might guess the names. I don't want to talk about them yet, not on recording. But they're actively working on integrations. We work with some smaller vendors at the moment, but nothing is ready yet. So yeah, because in the end, what Flowbear is really it's like an API service. We analyze the system, we come with a raw data vault, but then we don't generate the physical model, the create table statements, the insert statements. Instead, we provide it to these other vendors, our partners. They will essentially use one of our APIs to get the model out of our system and then into their repository. But they have to build these integrations, so we don't build them. We just provide the APIs. We help them to extract the metadata they need, and then off they go essentially, and everything else is left to them essentially. And even with this setup, they integrating with us, right? So they're putting some effort in there to build these integration scripts and building those integrations to get the data out and into the tool essentially. That's the current state. Yeah. So any other questions? Michael, what's your background?
Actually, I went to your
Okay.
Data Dreamland last November.
Okay,
and
well, yeah.
This January, I with Wolf Volker, I subscribed for this Data Vault 2.0
Cool.
certification. So I did it. I'm like 16 years in data warehousing, but most likely on premise Teradata and MS SQL Server. Currently Postgres, but it's I had a big expectation with my new client, but it's so small data set I am working currently with. So it's not necessary to build like data vault, data warehouse there. So I'm just curious, and I was like happy to have something, Friday afternoon that something useful.
Okay, cool.
Like, from time perspective.
Good time. Okay. So
I joined. Yeah.
Good.
I'm currently working also on a client side where the client has some sources to integrate, but I would say not large enough to bring all the GenAI things into. But the client is very ambitious about, I would like to tag my data with some metadata tags in the source, especially with Snowflake tags. Bring it then to the catalog system and then building a data vault. So I don't see any solution about that. So what I'm saying is, at first we need a rule engine to bring it a little bit into a raw vault, and then dealing with Turbo Vault for dbt, for example. And seeing that we need a rule engine, in my mind was, okay, I heard about a rule engine some months before in Flow BI. So I know that the most impact and the most revenue part, I would say, is a GenAI aspect. But I would appreciate if there would be a way to say, okay, I can load my tech data into, and your rule engine is processing the logical model for the raw vault for me. And then I feed it. And you said anyways that you are feeding it into things like Turbo Vault for dbt, and then going further with data vault for dbt.
Right. So there's an integration between FlowBI and TurboVault. That's towards data vault for dbt, right? And that integration is there essentially. And yeah, you can use that one, for example. You can also feed that back into Snowflake and tag your data, for example. I believe that because we know the structure, we know how the data from the source relates to the data vault design. What are the business key columns and so on, right? What are descriptive columns? We have the satellite splits for security, privacy, rate of change. So you could feed those classifications from FlowBI back into your tools as well.
Yeah, I would say the other way around.
Would work
We're
as
doing
well.
the tagging manually and loading it up to FlowBI, and FlowBI is not doing the Gen AI part. It's
Yeah, that works.
doing the modeling rules, the rule engines part.
That works as well because in the end, let me just double check where I am. Oh, here, 1 second. So that works as well because in the end, as I said, the whole user interface here is we follow an API first approach. So everything here you see, you can access via REST API. The user interface of FlowBase is just a front end for the REST API essentially, if you want. And we have the influence screen where you can. Let me just go for the smaller instance here.
And indeed, I appreciate that approach. We reviewed a tool on my current client, an automation tool, which is pretty new, but it's not on this API first approach. And we said, okay, we don't like to click in the GUI, we like to script it.
Yeah,
but not everything is, most things are provided via API, but not all, and not the relevant ones. So it was kicked out due to the non-API first approach. So that's what I really like here. And
our biggest problem is that not all the API codes are fully documented, but that's the other issues. But everything is available. So and that's why I'm pushing the developers to finish up the last documentation in this regard. So you could feed, for example, the privacy rules, the rate of change rules into this model here via REST API, and this table is available via REST, right? So you could feed these as regular expressions into this table, absolutely. And I just came from a call with a potential new partner where they have these classifications inside the tool as well. I mean, it's a tool for generating code for data-driven solutions, let's say, and they have everything in one system essentially. And they have they have a catalog where they classify the attributes, and they would feed that into FlowBI, hit the red button here, maybe via program, right? And then via REST API call, and then FlowBay would generate the model, and they would collect it again and move it downstream to generate the code. Essentially, that's the idea. So yeah, that's absolutely. I mean, there's a couple of options how we could get the data catalog data in here, either because you have privacy classifications, security classifications, you want to apply them, fine. There is a module upcoming for the privacy classifications. We have the module already; it's just not integrated yet. As stupid as it sounds, longer story, limited resources in the end. Where we look at your data and metadata and classify the attributes regarding privacy, personal attributes versus non-personal attributes. And then this would feed this data into this table, essentially. And then you could also look at, let's say you have a data lake and you have Parquet files, right? Parquet files provide you some metadata, columns, data types. But even the data types are already simplified. And you don't have relationships, primary keys, you have no documentation on the columns, no descriptions, and so on. So what you do is you can set up a data source where you also ingest metadata from a different source. So you have one data source connection, that's essentially a JBC connection to some system, and then you have a metadata connection, a separate one, which could be a data catalog, let's say Data Hub, where you query out the metadata for your column descriptions and so on from a separate connectivity essentially, and ingest that into your data flow to enrich the data from the data lake by appropriate metadata or more richer metadata. Because as I said, we can live with just the data, but if you can provide metadata from the source, perfect. It will improve the quality of the model essentially. Because then think about this, we have the descriptions from the columns, we can use those for describing the attributes in the satellite, for example, right? So it will enrich the raw data model. That's the idea. And I see that we might be a bit early in the market, but I'd rather be early than too late. The thing is this: I just hopped off a call with another potential client where they have like 5,000 Excel sheets or some sheets, but really organized in some way, but different structures essentially, and then 120 source systems and one guy to model everything. Right? Good luck. That's where, and they're super interested in FlowBI for a reason, right? Because that will solve the problem.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the idea. So it's really the modeler. And Flow, I mean, it's a great case. You don't have to start big. You don't have to come with 5,000 tables. As I said, I would start small with 15 tables and then model it, look at the results. You either like it or not, and then we can continue. So it's great for cases where you can foresee the data shape will go up, right? That's what we're looking for. Those cases where you have a lot of data shape in the future, but where you could also start small.
Yeah, and maybe you explained it, but so how it exactly works? So I have some data that I'm really willing to reprocess to data vault modeling. So shall I like contact like Flow BI team, or is it possible that I can jump directly to this, for example,
Yeah. So
to this UI and
yeah.
put there something myself in light version or something?
Right. So let's contact us because in the end,
Okay.
we have to interpret the results. I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
So what we require is for every POC that there is a partner involved and somebody certified in Flow BI. Why? Because when we produce the result, we have to explain the result to some extent. We build some, we call this what do you call it in training? We have some, let's say, special cases there. It's not out of line. So when we look at the data vault 2.0 or 2.1 standards, we follow them. But let's say there's, for example, there's a provision in the model which is called unit of work link. And if you went through the training with Volker, you know that there's a unit of work problem when you split links. So which means that the thing is this: when I model, and as I build the expert system here, I build all the rules in the expert system, how to model data vault, and we can adjust that again. So if you don't agree with me, that's fine. We can talk about that. The thing is this: if I model a raw data vault, if I know a source system, if I have access to the data and so on, I might split links because then I can perform the Jetta test and prove that everything is fine, and I understand the data set. But the less I know the data set, the less I have access to the data, I don't do a link split. What I do is, in the raw data vault, I don't split a link. I have a link for every source table that spans across all the hub references coming from the source. And I personally call this a unit of work link because it guarantees my unit of work. And this link we have in the model. But I have to explain what the unit of work link is because if you look at this without explanation, that's a problem. And we have couple of these provisions. They're in line with what we teach and preach in the trainings, but I might have to explain those provisions why they exist. For Volker and Richard, the non-integrated model is gone because now we discussed it, I believe, with you, Volker. We have a link for every source table. We don't combine multiple sources into one link essentially, and that solves the problem as well. So yeah, that's the change. So that non-integrated model was another provision, a big one. That's gone these days.
Yeah, I read about it in your last release notes.
Yeah. That's really cool. So yeah, because that solved the problem as well. So the thing is this: we guarantee that the raw data that we generate is valid. And the thing is this: Flow BI imitates a human data modeler, and a human data modeler, and actually it imitates me, to be honest, because I build these rules. But I do mistakes just as anybody else, right? So we are humans. That's the difference between us and the machines, essentially. Well, if the developer was messing it up, they do mistakes a lot at scale, essentially. But that's the difference. That's where we're humans. Now, Flow BI imitates a human modeler, which means that we had to make a choice. Either we try to prevent all these human mistakes, but then it's not human anymore, and seriously, good luck with that. You will never make that. Or we said, for all the potential errors that could happen, we have a provision. How we deal with those, we just let these human mistakes happen, and then we have a provision in the model or somewhere that deals with those human mistakes essentially and gives you a counter strategy and so on. So this unit of work link, yes, we do link splits. We separate hierarchical links, for example, and so on. But this unit of work link is there for you. If there's a issue, you can always derive the consistent data set from the model by accessing the unit of work link essentially. So you don't have to consume the split link, the split link. You have the original link essentially. That kind of stuff, and that's what we have essentially. So and that's why we have these provisions essentially in the model, and we have a few of those. So yes, happy to guide you, but at the moment you if you want to use this alone, you have to be trained, and there must be a partner involved essentially for this POC. But if you want to get your hands dirty, there's a training, and there's one upcoming after the summer break. Let me just show it to you, And that's where you get access to the system. It's read-only access, to be honest, but still you get access to the system. You can play around with the user interface. You get access to the SQL API. You can play with that into the latest features. And there's the training that comes up is we've scheduled 2 trainings now. One training in European time zone. That's the September 29 training. It's 2 days. In the first week, I believe it's Monday, Tuesday, and then the week after we have the other 2 modules. And then the first training on August 25 and September 3, those 4 events here, that's in US time zone, California time zone, 9 o'clock, I believe. So those trainings come in after the summer break. And that gives you access to the system essentially. Yep.
And to my experience, there's no need to not having it read only. So I think pushing the button would last some time. So you can really experience a lot with this read only GUI.
Yeah, it's good enough to understand.
Yeah, it's my experience from the training. Yeah. And especially later surfing the SQL interface is also very useful.
Yeah, the SQL interface anyway read only by design, because we have 2 APIs. We have a REST API for the user interface, so you can script everything, and we have a SQL API, and it's used by the vendors to get the logical model out of Flow BI and get that into their tool of the choice. So they can run a SQL statement against our API to pre-process the model and make it fit their expectations, essentially. That's the basic idea. So that's why this one was one of the reasons why we went for the SQL API. The other is, in the long run, maybe even in the medium run, we're going to open up more and more of our internal raw data vault. Because as I said, internally we have a raw data vault with staging areas and so on, and everything is secured. It's a Postgres database internally that we use because it runs on premise. That was one of the design goals. And we applied, I mean, the raw data vault in here is the most advanced raw data vault I've had, or the most advanced data warehouse here I've ever built, with full row level security on all the records. Everything's secured. We have multi-layered security. You don't get access to the full repository. You get access to a front-end database that gives you indirect access to the repository essentially. But there's multiple security levels here for a couple of reasons. And yeah, the SQL API gives you access to your data, where you can also define we have a permission system. You can define essentially multiple instances. So Flowbase is multi-tenant. So you can have, let's say you work for a corporation, you get your own tenant, and inside this tenant you can have multiple instances. One for the data platform, the central data platform, one for compliance, one for HR, one for a data product or business use case, and so on. Thousands of instances. Each instance will provide you is independent and comes up the results in a data model essentially. It's independent data models. And you can define which user inside Flow BI can access which instances inside your client essentially. And that's enforced everywhere in the REST API, in the SQL API. And yeah, and one of the things is the SQL API is read only because it's only used for querying out. But this will be opened up, and we will make more data available from the raw data behind the scenes. At the moment, there's a lot of information marks for the reporting structures. We have a lot of metadata, and that's why we also have a reporting engine. It's this button here, reporting engine with different reports on the metadata essentially. So it's not a replacement for your Tableau or Power BI. It's really just a user interface part. So you can build your own custom reports, delta reports, lineage reports on a logical model, and so on. And yeah, that's also available already. Sorry.
Okay. So I'm surprised that before this meeting or session, I thought that this is only about generate raw data vaults, but it's possible to also
it's
beyond up to the information marts.
No. So when I talk about information marts, those are information marts inside our
inside your okay,
yeah.
But when the output is still just raw data vault, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
These reports are used to describe the raw data vault that we
I understood. But the output is still just raw data vault.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, and if you mentioned that you incorporate with those vendors, those free, so does it mean that basically, but as a potential future client, I'm not dependent on them, so I can the output, the raw data vault basically, it's up to me if I maybe potentially can work with in DBT later on with that or yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I would not. The thing is, I would not modify the raw data vault itself. The thing is, from a valid raw data vault, and that's the idea of Flow BI. We always generate a valid raw data vault. From a valid raw data vault, you can always derive a target schema, any target schema, typically star schemas or like dimension models and so on. But what about a better data vault design? But I would do this in the business vault. So if you don't agree with everything in the raw data vault that we generate for you, you can improve this using your business vault entities. That's what I would recommend.
Yeah, I'm just referring to the potential like overall costs. So basically, if we have like new clients,
Yeah.
I might propose, let's try this one. It's a
Yep.
bigger client. Let's go to this direction. So basically, okay. So some costs with training, that something related to the service itself. But then you recommended to go, for example, with one of those free vendors and build data vault through their
Yeah.
service, right?
I mean, yeah, so we have multiple partners, and two partners I can talk about right now is really Data Vault Builder, which is a commercial tool, and the Scale-Free for DBT package, which is based on open source DBT essentially. And there's more vendors coming in. So we talked to at least one open source vendor where they have an interest in integrating, but they just got the contract essentially for the ICs. And then we have three major commercial vendors, which you know. And they are two of them are actually integrating right now as we speak, and one is going to integrate soon. So that's my assumption. And then we talked to two more commercial vendors, smaller cases. They are partners already, but I haven't seen anything integration-wise yet. And I'm not sure if they're actually integrating, to be honest. But yeah, I can't make the announcements here on the record. So I might share this with you off the record afterwards when I stop recording. I can talk. I can say the names, but I wouldn't do it on recording essentially. But because they're not ready yet to publish anything. Yep. But it's
I'm
more.
just thinking, you know, if we as a company that I work for would do some POC for someone,
Yep.
and I'm just thinking that if that POC is supposed already to count on that, okay, so it's one of those vendors, and for example, you mentioned that, and our following or future
Yep.
like maintenance is only through that, or it might be more flexible in terms of another options.
Yeah. Yeah.
How does it?
Good.
How does the service bring Flow BI output into Data Vault for DBT or via Turbo Vault into Data Vault for DBT? Is it at the end a service from Scale-Free, or is it the idea to bring Scale-Free consultants in?
No. So Scale-Free and Flow BI are two different separate companies, and the only let's say the only common denominator here is the founder. It's me. I founded both companies essentially, but Flow BI is completely independently funded and so on. So it's really a software company. Flow BI really my vision for Flow BI, it should be lean. So I would like to focus on essentially the software development, the support, the documentation, and so on. But all the consulting, we don't have consultants here. I would even claim that we don't have many data vault specialists here because my specialty at Flow BI, they're software engineers. They can build MVP clusters, they can do data mining, AI, I have a user interface specialist, and so on. But a user interface specialist doesn't know about data vault. Even the backend developers, they know data vault actually for other reasons, but I wouldn't say that they're the best data vault designers here. So they know how to build these MVP classes essentially and build the Docker images and so on, right, for the distribution. So that's what they know. So we don't do consulting. We rely on partners to bring Flow BI to a client and to run and integrate Flow BI into the data architecture of the client. That's Scale-Free is one partner, but we have also Micra as a partner, which is more business oriented. And we're looking for more partners actually at the moment. So and there's also an announcement to come.
My question is not for coming mixture up now Scale-Free and Flow BI. So if you are dealing with Data Vault Builder, it's clear Data Vault Builder likes to sell licenses. And if they have a connector, they're saying, okay, I sell you a license and a license for a connector. Scale-Free is, and think you're not the vendor of Scale-Free, you're only the vendor of Flow BI, no, not the vendor, the founder of Flow BI now. And Scale-Free is building that connector, but is not having their own solution they are selling. So what is the idea? Is the idea of your partner company Scale3 to bring a software service, or is it about, yeah, we bring some consultants and they do the integration for you?
No, to be honest, so the packages like Datavault for DBT, but also TurboVault are open source packages, and the integration is essentially a closed source but free download. So, and that's all you need as a consulting firm to run essentially a combination of Flow BI with Datavault for DBT and DBT at the client. There's no need for Scale3.
Okay. Basically, that was my question.
Yeah.
But
No,
didn't. Thank you.
I tried to translate.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay,
Thank you for
that. Okay.
the interpretation.
Yeah. So it's really independent companies, and I mean, and you don't have to go with the open source stuff from Scale3, right? You could also go with other options, but there must be integration essentially. That's always the missing part at the moment. But again, once we have these other 3 vendors, then I would say that 99% of the projects out there are using one of the vendors that we integrate with, to be honest. I mean, you can imagine the 3 vendors we're talking to, the 3 major ones that are missing on the list at the moment, and they're coming.
Yeah. But you know, if I work like for mid-size consultancy company, they most likely would not like to offer this service via some data vault builder, because then the client can say, we don't need you, right? So we can basically go for data vault builder and that's it. So I'm just thinking, so to be like maybe directly via DBT, that Scale3 extension, and be more flexible, and at the end offer it under our with licensing from Flow BI.
The thing is, I mean, yes, but also with a tool like Datavault Builder, for example, you still need consultancy, right? Because it's just that your focus will shifting. Your focus will shift from the raw data vault, where there's lots of patterns and actually underlying patterns. That's what Flow BI goes for the underlying patterns of data vault. It shifts to the business logic, right? Where you need more human brain. That's the basic idea. So and the work is shifting, but you focus on the business value, where you actually generate business value essentially. And scale, right? Again, yes, you could build this. I have had one pushback from a consultant. Yeah, we can build this raw data vault within 2 weeks. So what's the value of Flow BI? Yes, I agree. A small model, 15 tables, you can build by yourself in 2 weeks. But then scale it to 5,000 tables. You won't get this done anymore. So, and that's where Flow BI, the value of Flow BI comes in essentially.
That is what I named the Pareto vault. So with Flow BI, you're having an 80% nice raw vault in 20% of the time. And I assume it's more than 80 and less than 20, but Pareto works better in the industry as a known format.
And the thing is this, here's the thing. I truly believe, if you build the raw data vault by all yourself, manually, as a human, you might even get a better raw data vault. If you know how to model a raw data vault, because I just had a discussion on LinkedIn with a guy who has clearly no idea what data vault is, but it's a longer story. I don't want any names. So some of you should be able to build a really good raw data vault here. And the thing is this, yes, you can, you will outbeat Flow BI. Flow BI is really designed for cases where you need a decent model, and it's actually much better than it sounds right now. But your goal is not to come up with a perfect raw data vault or something. Your goal is to deliver information in the end, reports, dashboards, that kind of stuff, right? So Flow BI will deliver the first layers, the staging areas, landing zone, and the raw data vault. But even if you don't agree with all the decisions Flow BI does, you can improve them in the business vault. But my challenge would be, do you really need to improve them? Because in the end, you can still derive as long as you have the business logic in place for transforming your actual data, not the model, just the data, you can derive your information marks from what Flow BI provides you and your business logic in the business vault. That should be sufficient to deliver the information. And if you want to have a better model, you can focus on the business vault, because in the end, the data vault design is a combination of both the raw data vault and the business vault. That combination is your enterprise model that describes both your raw data and the business perspective. So that's what Flow is designed for, not for coming up with the best model here. But it's actually much better than it sounds like.
And in my experience, if you're going for larger enterprises, they have a business conceptual model anyway. So I had such one for 2 years, and they're very nice designed business conceptual model. And we are coming with the raw vault, and in the raw vault we have, for example, more relationships than in the enterprise model. then we do it anyway in the business vault to bring the raw model into that business conceptual model, to make the business people, or to support the business people to define easier their reports. That is what we do anyway. So if the raw vault is not perfect, no worries. You anyways adjust some things.
And that's actually a good point, which I didn't think about back in your training a couple of months ago. So I had some couple of POCs, and one POC was interesting because I realized, I mean, just that's what I have a tool now, and now I'm getting more and more cases here, right? So the thing is this: let's say your organization has an ontology defined, customers, purchase, products, that kind of stuff. You have all these business concepts inside your ontology, and what you do is, so what Flow BI does is it looks at your data sets and tries to identify these concepts from your data, identifies what's inside your tables essentially. And if you don't agree with this, you can overwrite it. So author's episode communication, even it's an app, for example, you just overwrite this essentially. Now here's the cool thing: you can take the ontology of your organization that you might already have, and just apply it. So maybe you even have the mapping in your data catalog, how your source tables map to your ontology. This mapping you can load into this table here. And once you set up these concepts here based on your ontology, what Flow BI does is it maps the incoming raw data to your ontology. That's a cool thing. So it doesn't even go against a more logical business model. No, we just take this business model that you have and apply it inside Flow BI to map the raw data to your ontology. But then again, the raw data vault, we model the raw data as it's being used by the business. So we don't model as you would like to expect it. We attach the raw data with all the elements from the source data sets. That's the idea.
So you do A1 with Flow BI, then applying the concepts from the ontology, and then do a second one to
build all the model.
Deeper integrate it and to synchronize it with the terms.
Yeah. But because you can override this, if you don't agree that automations, but procedures, if that's your term, just override it. Procedures. That's the basic idea. And this will impact the raw data vault and how we organize the raw data vault essentially. That's the idea. So it's not going against logical model. We had one POC where the client expected us, they had an ontology, and they expected us that Flow BI can map the incoming data to the ontology without Flow BI knowing the ontology. That's not going to work. Right? So Flow BI doesn't know your specific ontology if you don't type it in. I mean, that's what it is. But you can align Flow BI to your ontology. That's for sure. And again, everything's REST API based. So if you have a data catalog with your defined ontology, maybe with the mappings from source table to your ontology, then that's this table here essentially. You can feed that into the table.
Okay.
Cool. Any other questions, comments? Interesting setup. So I like the setup actually. So yeah, I had this idea this morning. Cool. Yeah, thanks for joining. It was quite a interesting group here with quite interesting people here. And yeah, Doug, it's very early in the morning, I believe, in your location, right?
Oh no, it's getting towards midday. So
okay,
it's almost 11 in the morning here. So
yeah.
Good.
Okay.
East Coast?
Yes, East Coast.
Okay. Yeah, nice. So yeah, we're looking for partners to get this into clients essentially. So that's the idea. And we're running POC. So my goal is to have success stories, hopefully this year. But the biggest problem is the organizational aspects here to get this running at a client with all the data privacy and so on, data security and so on. So that's the organizational aspects are taking much longer than I expected initially. But that's what it is. Yeah. Okay, let me stop the recording here, and I just want to give you some more off-the-record statements here. So thanks for joining today, and yeah, see you hopefully in the next webinar, guys. Now comes the off-record stuff. Let me just stop the recording here. Thanks.
Thank you very much.
And
thanks.
Thank you very much.
And Richard is bringing a counter background to the coast, the West Coast or East Coast. Now he brings the mountains in.
Yeah.